Hello, travelers. My name is Thomas the Human Bard, and I am joined today by...
Onog the Half-Orc Barbarian.
And Bean the Rock Gnome Rogue. I'm here too, guys. This never happens, where I get to come on the special trip.
Well, on this episode of the Copper Fox Inn, we are doing an Unearthed Arcana Deep Delve. I'll put like a cool echoey kind of sound effect on that, so it'll sound really cool, like I cast Thaumaturgy on myself or something.
Echo!
Oh, very
Echo!
We're going to be delving into the dungeon of the newest Unearthed Arcana 2022 Giant Options. This was written by Mackenzie DeArmas, James Wyatt, Ben Petrazor, and personal good friend of the channel, all of our uncle, Jeremy Crawford. Uncle Jeremy.
Oh, now he's legally related to all of us?
Yes, to all of us. He's all of our uncle-in-law.
We have all married his niece.
Yes. Well, or nephew.
I married his niece. I don't know. I am excited. I haven't read the Unearthed Arcana yet, but I'm excited that we finally have, like, giant player race options. I think that's... Ooh. I mean, like, we got furbolgs, but, like, real giants. Oh. You know that's gonna be...
Who's gonna... Are you gonna tell her?
I mean, a furbolg would synergize with a lot of these options.
Yeah, it's like, because then you and your giant friends can all hang out, like... Because I'm small, so I'm excited to play.
Sadly, there is no giant player race option in this document.
Oh.
But there is a way for you, a small rock gnome, to become giant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's something. This playtest document presents a collection of subclasses and feats for Dungeons & Dragons. Subclass options. There are 3 new subclasses which allow barbarians, druids, and wizards to explore deeper ties to giants and the realms they inhabit. And there are feats. This collection of feats provides options for players who wish to link their character to giants, other titanic creatures, and primordial magic. This is playtest material. They give us then a little bit of a classic rundown. They want your feedback, and just so you know, the power level may be more or less powerful than typical options, especially those in the player's handbook. But you know,
because we are the gauge by which they are measured.
Yeah, they'll have another balancing pass on these before they ever publish them, if they ever do. Sometimes they never end up publishing them. Sometimes they're just sort of an experiment.
Yeah, it's beta D&D. I normally only play alpha D&D because I'm not about the... I don't know.
So the first subclass option is... This section presents 3 new subclass options. The Path of the Giant for the Barbarian, the Circle of the Primeval for the Druid, and the Rune Crafter for the Wizard. Now, Onog, as our resident Barbarian, I'd love it if you took over and told us about the Barbarian Path of the Giant options.
All right. We have the Path of the Giant. Barbarians who walk the Path of the Giant draw strength from the primal forces that are the giants and their elemental ilk. A weird place to use the word ilk, but all right.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a justifiable use of ilk.
Oh, no, we gotta use ilk way more often. I think it's in like one Christmas song, and that's it. We gotta bring ilk back.
Did you know that people in the Midwest pronounce it alk?
Okay.
When are they pronouncing it? When does it come up?
All right, hold on. You're making me impatient because their rages surge with elemental power and cause the barbarians to grow in size, transforming them into avatars of primordial might. During their rage, a barbarian may take after a legendary storm giant, hair turning white and eyes crackling with lightning. Others adopt the monstrous features of apocalyptic titans, rending the world around them so that it may be made anew. I have a feeling that part isn't gonna be what is allowed in this subclass, but all right.
You don't think that there's a subclass feature that lets them rend the world around them so it can be made anew? You don't think that's like once per
really
long rest, you can rend the world around you?
I think the most potent upper-level barbarian subclass features get is like the Path of the Zealot, where it just says you are not allowed to die.
If they were allowed to destroy the world to make it anew, this would be like the Vishnu class. Like,
yeah. I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of, Giant Power, 3rd level Path of the Giant feature. When you choose this path, you learn to speak, read, and write Giant, or one other language of your choice, if you already know Giant. Thank you so much. That's one of the most frustrating things about subclass-provided languages, is if you already know the language, you just don't get a feature.
I do always think it's funny, though, when someone's like, yeah, of course I already know Giant, and that's part of my backstory because I knew I would take this subclass. So now, at 3rd level, I've randomly decided to become fluent in Draconic.
Yeah,
Unrelated.
but that's the thing, is it's like you either do it the other way, where you were already fluent in... You have to either be not fluent in Giant for 3 levels, even though that's the vibe you're going for, and then you learn Giant eventually, or you pretend you knew Giant the whole time and then switch real quick.
You gotta pull the, yeah, I speak Giant.
Yeah,
and everyone's like, what?
I've been able to speak Giant this whole time.
Yeah.
All right. Additionally, you learn either the Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy cantrip, your choice. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for this spell. So you can, like you, Thomas, have said before, Thaumaturgy is very good for giving you that booming voice. Mm-hmm. Don't really know about Druidcraft. I guess it's for the elemental vibes that they always go for with their giants in D&D. Don't really know.
Because most of the giants are connected in some way to like the elemental planes. Yeah. There's like storm
Frost
giants
and
hill
storm
giants and
fire giants.
Yeah, so probably something along those lines if you want to be more of like a titan of nature.
Mm-hmm. Don't know how useful these cantrips will be to you, but the flavor is free.
That's why they're cantrips, yeah.
Yeah. Giant's Havoc, the other 3rd level path of the giant feature. Your rages pull strength from the primal might of giants, transforming you into a hulking force of destruction. While raging, you gain the following benefits. Crushing Hurl.
Hushing Curl.
Hushing Curl. When you make a successful ranged attack with a thrown weapon using strength, you can add your rage damage bonus to the attack's damage roll. So now you can be an angry chuckster.
You can be a javelin barbarian.
Yeah, which, given the dice size of most thrown weapons, is still not going to be your optimal choice, but hey, it's nice that you...
Maybe a dwarven thrower, perhaps?
Maybe a dwarven thrower, but I believe you have to be a dwarf. And they hate giants, so that's also another vibe where it's like...
You know, maybe not in your campaign.
No, I know, but like specifically, don't dwarven throwers do extra damage to giants or something?
They may. That might be.
I think I might be thinking of the Hammer of Thunderbolts. But anyways, giant stature, speaking of. Your reach increases by 5 feet. Okay, so your threat range increases, and if you are smaller than large, you become large, along with anything you are wearing. If there isn't enough room for you to become large, your size does not change.
So they are specifically not pulling a She-Hulk, where they're like, no, your clothes grow with you. Like...
You can't rip out of your clothes.
You can't rip out of your clothes.
Cowards, they say.
Well, I think it's more talking about the room. Like, for instance, if we were in a dungeon that wasn't carved out by giants, but in fact carved out by gnomes, the barbarian path of the giant might have run into some issues.
You know that if the tunnel was carved by gnomes, it would be very roomy for, like, the sake of ease of use.
Sure.
So
Yeah, because they're very thoughtful.
Chairs and tables through
Yeah,
there.
that's true.
But
so
either way...
Your range increasing by 5 feet, that is just a flat bonus on top of any other means you may be increasing your reach.
Mm-hmm. So if you are, for instance, a bugbear, that means that your base reach would be 15 feet. If you are a bugbear using giant stature and a weapon that already has reach, who needs to throw weapons when you can
attack
actively
someone 20 feet
melee
away.
attack people 20 feet away from you?
That's pretty wild.
It is something to note. I don't think that Crushing Hurl synergizes with Reckless Attack, which is the level 2 barbarian feature that allows you to grant yourself advantage on all of your melee attacks on a turn. So if you do want to make a throwing weapon barbarian, you need to take that into account, where basically one of the most useful features on a barbarian still doesn't really synergize with that. At least the way that it's written.
Sadly, I don't think you can make ranged melee attacks.
Yeah.
not
Well,
really
there are
possible.
attacks with the melee weapons and melee weapon attacks, and those are different things.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you can make a ranged attack with a melee weapon if it has the thrown property, but melee weapon attacks are not ranged weapon attacks with a melee weapon. Are you following?
Yeah.
No, but
I'm on
I
board.
trust you.
All right, the next ability. So we basically have you get big, and you can chuck stuff. It's a little bit like the Rune Knight's level 3 ability of similar things. You can become big as part of a bonus action, though this one is tied to your rage. Okay. Elemental Cleaver, the 6th level path of the giant feature. Your bond with the elemental might of giants and their ilk. Once again,
Second
grows.
use of ilk, powerful.
They were just really ilking it for all it's got. And you learn to infuse weapons with primordial energy. When you enter your rage, you can infuse one weapon of your choice that you are holding with one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, thunder, or lightning. While you wield the infused weapon during your rage, the weapon's damage type changes to the chosen type, and it deals an extra 1d6 damage of the chosen type when it hits, and it gains the thrown property with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. If you throw the weapon, it reappears in your hand the instant after it hits or misses a target. The infused weapon's benefits are suppressed while a creature other than you wields it. While raging and holding the infused weapon, you can use a bonus action to change the infused weapon's current damage type to a different one from the above damage type.
Everybody's Thor now.
Everybody's Thor now. So now you have a little bit more synergy with your own previous ability of Crushing Hurl, where now even your giant great axe can be a thrown weapon. So that's pretty fun. It is interesting to note, so you can pivot, and it does increase the damage you do with the weapon when you change its damage type. It is important to note, though, if you are taking the Tasha's feats of Slasher, Piercer, or Crusher, and you're relying on the functionality of those feats, this ability does make it so those feats don't work anymore, because your weapon is no longer doing slashing damage, it is now doing cold damage or
Interesting.
things like that.
So it doesn't just deal 1d6 of that damage on top of its usual. It changes
the whole weapon to cold damage and 1d6 cold damage. But, so for instance, if you're fighting, if at this level you don't have magic weapons yet, and you're fighting a werewolf, well, slashing damage from a non-magical weapon isn't going to do you much good. So if you switch to fire or thunder or lightning, that's very useful
Significantly
to be
better.
able to pivot.
Yeah.
And even if you choose wrong and you go, I know that bunch of shambling mounds over there, they're weak to lightning, right? And you made the wrong choice, you can always switch it back.
Yeah. I mean, I love the ability to, on the fly, face the threats that my DM throws at me, to feel smart for it, to be rewarded for being like, so this is a fiery demon. I'm going to try using cold damage on it. And having that opportunity to swap my damage around to do what I feel like is an intelligent or strategic move, that's very rewarding to me as a player when that does work out. And they go, aha, you're right, of course it would be weak to cold damage. It takes extra damage. That feels great.
I mean, I think as well, like, usually if you're a barbarian and you have some kind of extra magic damage, it's because you have a magic weapon, like you have a hammer that deals fire damage, which does mean that if, like, you're just stuck there. So if you face something that is resistant to fire, if your DM if your DM sucks and just only throws things at you that are resistant to the one type of damage that you have, it does mean, like, I feel like we've all been stuck in that situation where you're like, my thing that I do, like, just really keeps not applying.
I guess I chose wrong.
Yeah. So this allows you to, like, have some flexibility within the space that you can adjust according to parameters, if you will.
Well, Bean, you actually bring up an interesting interaction. So let's say this barbarian has a firebrand weapon, a firebrand longsword, which does normal slashing damage
And fire.
and 2d6 fire damage.
Yeah.
What happens if they infuse it with cold? Does just the slashing damage change to cold damage and they roll an extra cold damage and then they also roll fire damage? Or does all of the damage the weapon does change to cold?
I mean, the words listed, it says the weapon's damage type, which I'd imagine...
Is the slashing and not the fire?
Yeah.
Well, no, I was actually going to argue it's any damage that is dealt by the weapon itself, like sourced from the weapon, as opposed to like you deal that damage to them when you hit them with the weapon, or it creates a pool of lava that hurts them or something. If it is from the weapon, if its origin is the weapon, I would argue that is the weapon's damage, but maybe I'm wrong.
That's fair. But yeah, so that's something that might need to be clarified, something that might need to be changed.
If your weapon deals
in the
multiple
rework.
damage types, does it change all of them, or do you pick one? That would be useful to clarify.
Or is that up to you? Yeah. But yeah, so now we have Mighty Impel.
What does impel mean?
I think to impel someone is to...
It's when you
Like
stab them through with a big stick.
Well,
So that's
it's like
impale.
crushing... It's like... No, it's like crushing hurl. And
Crushing hurl just makes me think you throw up on someone
Yeah,
so
impel
hard
is
it
like
hurts them.
Isn't that just like a throw?
I think it is to make someone go somewhere.
We've got words like ilk, hurl, impel. I feel like
Yeah.
they're trying to compensate
They're
for
getting-
the fact that it's a barbarian
They're
stat
getting real
block.
fancy. They're
It
getting
is-
real fancy.
Its definition is to drive forward or propel.
So, 10th level Path of the Giant feature. Your connection to giant strength now allows you to hurl both allies and enemies on the battlefield. As a bonus action while raging, you can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself.
Ooh.
You can just huck someone 30 feet. An unwilling creature must succeed on a strength saving throw DC 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength modifier to avoid the effect. If at the end of this movement the thrown creature isn't on a surface or liquid that can support it, the creature falls, taking damage as normal and landing prone.
Interesting.
What's
I think
the,
they should have called it impelling hurl.
I think they should have called it mighty throw. What's the fall damage for 30 feet?
30 feet is, I believe, 3d6.
Oh, that's right. You could just put them in the air.
You just
Up is
straight
a
up.
direction.
Up is
Up
a
is a
direction.
direction.
It is an unoccupied space as long as there's nothing above you. Yeah. It's interesting to me, though, that it doesn't... So let's pretend there was a wall like 3 feet in front of you. You can't throw them into the wall, dealing damage with like the strength of the throw. You can only put them next to the wall, and they would just stop right in front of the wall. Which is kind of a weird vibe for like, I want to throw my enemies around the battlefield.
I feel like what you should be able to say with this is just that you can give someone fall damage no matter what direction they throw them if they hit a surface at the end of their journey, if that makes sense.
So this is very similar to an ability I gave a homebrew subclass for a wrestler barbarian path, where it was just if you have already grappled someone, it was much more restrictive than this, but it also does more damage guaranteed, where it's like if you had already grappled someone, you can decide to shove them, but you get to throw them like 20 feet or something like that. But this, you don't even have to be grappling someone, they just have to be next to you and you can just chuck them. But yeah, you're right, unless you're causing thrown damage, or unless you're causing fall damage, this doesn't do damage. This is just positioning.
It's also
a forced teleport, if you will.
It's kind of interesting though too, because most barbarian abilities that I can think of tend to have abilities where you're keeping people close to you because you can take damage. You draw aggro. That's a classic barbarian move. Whereas this is like, actually I'm going to throw them far away from me, which I'm not saying couldn't come in handy, but that may encourage whatever enemy you're fighting to start picking on someone else in the group. Or you may literally throw them closer to some... I mean, you can throw them farther away from the wizard, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not
Or
saying
you
that.
Or you could throw the
wizard
wizard farther away. Yeah, we had the exact same thought.
the classic throw the gnome across the river kind of vibe.
Yeah, I wish you guys would
Fastball
ask
special.
me that before you do it, but I understand the situation.
What? You've landed safely every
My
time.
class
almost.
feature says it does not say you have to be willing.
But yeah, so this is an interesting area control. Yeah, once again, kind of what Bean brought up. Most barbarians want to be up in people's faces, but then also this one does have some throne capabilities built in, so maybe they don't mind
That's
being
not-
far away.
That is actually not a bad point to bring up there, Onog, because specifically, if you're building into this, you've gotten multiple options to use thrown weapons.
I was actually literally just thinking, can you just start using people as your thrown weapons?
Oh, no, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say
Oh.
thrown weapons are best when you are not directly next to someone, or else you'll have disadvantage on your ranged attack. So you could throw them away from you as a bonus action, and then use your action to throw your javelin at them.
You're like, I'm better at range. Back up, you know?
Get into my range that I like throwing at, and then I'll throw at you.
If you take Tavern Brawler, though, and then you have proficiency with improvised weapons,
Oh no.
you could start using people as your ranged weapons.
I think that's a horse of a different podcast, I think, at this
Just
point.
saying.
I think we need a bingo sheet for Bean suggests, well, what if you took the Tavern Brawler feature on any subclass
On
we've
any
ever
subclass.
covered?
Look, it's one of only it's one of 3 things that I know about D&D. One of my characters has Tavern Brawler, and so I know about it.
That could be something a DM might rule, but as the rules are written right now, it doesn't do inherent damage
Yeah.
unless you're dealing with fall damage.
Which, I mean, throw him off a cliff.
Throw them out, just
throw
go
'em off
straight
a
to
cliff.
straight into lava.
Yeah.
Straight into the lava. That's always. I mean, if you're not putting spike traps in your dungeons for your barbarian to throw people into, what are you doing?
Okay, what if it said that no matter how far you throw them, they always take, maybe 15 is too much, but they always take at least 10 feet of damage? So you could just pick them up and throw them on the ground, like right where you are.
Well, I think that the
But-
problem would be you don't want that to happen when you're throwing your friend.
That,
Yeah, because I think
you can choose for them to take
Maybe.
damage?
Maybe.
Like, because if you throw them
Can
hard...
I spike them directly in front of me like a football star
Yeah, that's
after
what I'm
he's done a
saying.
touchdown? Just throw them straight downward.
just slap the halfling on the back of the head and it makes a volleyball noise. Unk.
Hulk smash. But like you said, because then if there's a wall that's like 20 feet away and you throw them, what if they took the amount of fall damage that they traveled? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's
And then you could then say that if you throw them at someone else, that the person that's hit by them takes the fall damage instead.
well, that's kind of how my version of this ability worked for the wrestler feat. Is that basically you could throw them 20 feet, and then if they hit someone or something, both of them will take damage from this event.
Divided amongst
Yeah.
them or
Yeah.
whatever.
I would take some.
No, they
some,
just both take the same amount of damage. If they hit each other, they hit each other.
This barbarian defies the laws of physics.
I think
Okay.
that the problem is that
not
it would
how
end up
damage
taking
works.
too much nuanced wording to try and fit all that into this. And
Oh yeah,
the-
I'll tell you what. That homebrew I made is very wordy in that
Yeah.
paragraph, and I'm like,
I mean, we've
trying to
already-
work around things.
While there is a bit of a lack of verisimilitude with, like, I throw him as hard as I can at the wall next to me, and it's like, well, he lands safely because this can't deal damage. It's honestly like it still keeps all the benefits that it wants to have of being able to move people around the battlefield. Just don't think of it as I throw someone to hurt them. Just
Yeah.
like forget about that idea. That's a cool idea for a different feat, you know? Like, yeah.
And that being said, if you want to, cause damage to someone, there's something you could always do, and that's hit them with your weapon and
Maybe
just
attack.
flavor it as I hit them into the wall
yeah.
with my weapon.
I guess it also synergizes with other classes, because if the wizard's like, oh, I want to cast fireball, but they're next to other people, and so I'll hit them. You, the barbarian, can be like, where do you want him? But like, I'll put him there.
This barbarian is the true chuckster.
What do you want to bet I can throw this goblin over them mountains? All right, let's finish it out, Onog here. Final ability.
Demiurgic Colossus, 14th level Path of the Giant feature. So this is the capstone for this chonky boy. The primordial power of your rage intensifies. When you rage, your reach now increases by 10 feet. So that 20-foot reach, bugbear now can reach 25 feet. Your size can increase to huge, and you can now use your mighty impel to move creatures that are large or smaller. So your subject size can increase. In addition, the extra damage dealt by your elemental cleaver feature increases to 2d6.
Nice.
So yeah, just a flat all-around improvement of abilities you already have. So not the most exciting of capstones,
the classic
but mechanically,
capstone. Everything that we gave you is just a little better now.
Mm-hmm. So it's not incredibly excited. It's certainly not. While you rage, you cannot die. But
if you had the size can increase to huge, and then your wizard casts enlarge on you, and your oh god, what's the player race of giant folk, Danny?
Goliaths.
And you're a Goliath. How much can you lift at that point?
Oh, if you have like max strength.
So if you can now increase your size to huge when you rage, and then the wizard casts enlarge on you, you become gargantuan, which is 20 by 20 feet. Mm-hmm. That's very big. That is as big as a kraken or a purple worm.
So if you are enlarged on top of that, yeah.
Yeah, but then
and
with
then
powerful
you have powerful build on top of that, so you can carry twice as much as a gargantuan creature, which is a size category heretofore undefined.
Yeah, which is not anything above 20 by 20 feet is just also gargantuan. There isn't a higher size category so far in D&D, which I feel like we're missing out. We got to get some bigger ones.
What would you call the next size up?
Big old boy.
Big Chungus.
Big Chungus. Yeah.
What about like big, but the I has an umlaut?
Big.
Big.
Bog.
So overall, this is a barbarians, but they are big.
It's barbarians but big, but also throwing a lot.
But they also throw.
How do you feel, Onog, about the throwing, the focus on thrown weapons and thrown damage and throwing things? Is that, when you're gonna build a barbarian, actually gonna entice you at all?
I have to say, while it is nice to get little bonuses, and this is basically simultaneously a it is a giant barbarian, but also a ranged barbarian, supposedly. It is nice to have the incentives to use range, but it's still just not quite the same, and they might not have intended it to be the same level of incentive to use melee attacks like normal, because, like we said, reckless attack just doesn't work with thrown weapons. It only works with melee attacks, and that's mostly what you'll be doing as a barbarian, is trying to draw attention to yourself, trying to use reckless attack to incentivize enemies to attack you instead of your allies. And you can't do that while you're throwing. And in fact, if you are, at least with most builds that how I play barbarians, if you're more than 20 feet away from your opponents, you can't threaten with reaction attacks, with opportunity attacks. You are just significantly less of a threat to the opponent if you are a ranged barbarian than you are in melee. That being said, the other side of this ability,
it's weird. You know what I just realized?
What?
It's weird that you can give any weapon the thrown property with a range of 20 feet, but also you basically have a reach of 20 feet. So why wouldn't you just hit them? They're in your reach.
Yeah, and that's the thing, especially if you're that bugbear boy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Why would you throw a weapon at them if your reach has increased? Or does that increase the range of the weapons that you're throwing? Do they increase by 5
But
too?
not everyone's going to play a specific rate.
Yeah, but even if you aren't a bugbear boy, you get that 20-foot range at the 14th level cap anyways. So it's like, why are you throwing your weapons when you can just reach out and touch somebody with it? The other side of things is this just feels like Rune Knight, but with less with only the most boring of all of the features that Rune Knight gets.
Because Rune Knight has a lot of options for choosing with their runes, like what element they want to kind of lean into, what effects they want to build into. Whereas
they can have a whole repertoire of reactions and actions they can take. The Rune Knights are actually a very supportive fighter. In addition to becoming large, they have all of these like tricksy abilities. They can switch attack targets. They can make you have disadvantage on any attack, saving throw, or skill check or something like that. I don't think it's saving throw, but it's stuff like that. And then barbarians get, I can be big too, and I can throw too, and that's even with all this extra damage and incentive, still the less useful path for me. And that being said, like Bean kind of talked about, that doesn't mean everyone's going to build their giant barbarian the exact same way, but it is still going to be, you think you're gaining all these benefits, and then when you sit there and think about it, you're not getting as many benefits as you think you are.
Yeah. I think a more interesting 14th level ability for me, which would really kind of tie the whole thing together, would be like one sentence, and it would just say, if you use your mighty impel ability on a creature, you can treat that creature as a improvised weapon.
As an improvised thrown weapon or something.
Which then would also give them, you can use your bonus or whatever to imbue them with fire damage, and they can return to your hand after you throw them.
And
like
if you were to take if you were to be brawling and also in a tavern, you'd be good at it.
I think that would be something that ties all these kind of parts together in a much more fantasy fulfilling way for me, of like, oh, I get it. My goal is to walk in and start throwing skeletons at other skeletons, like to start throwing men at other men. Like, this is my calling in life, is to pick up a handful of kobolds and use them like snowballs at their leader.
I mean, it is a classic Hulk or the Thing like fantasy of just, I walk in with just my arms and they're like, where are your weapons? And you look at them and crack your knuckles.
Yeah, you pick them up by their ankles and just start chucking them at each other.
Puny
now
god.
That very good. That being said, there is a potential we are missing even without the using your opponents as weapon, and that's using your friends. Because you can throw up to large creatures, right? You grow to large and you can throw medium. Darn it, I was imagining two giant Path of the Giant barbarians throwing each other across the battlefield, and just kind of like a tag team wrestling acrobatics bit of just like the just chucking each other across a battlefield to get to different places.
It's like the Seven Brides for Seven Brothers dance move where you hold hands and you're kind of like doing cartwils together.
Yeah, and you're just flipping around.
You're flipping around.
Ask the DM, can we connect to each other with a bungee cord?
just belay each other across the battlefield, and that just sparked happiness in my brain. But alas, the rules do not allow it. If you were both raging at the same time, you wouldn't be able to throw each other.
But you totally could throw your, paladin or somebody straight into the middle of all the skeletons, so that when they use their turn undead, it's much more effective. Now I want to see a build that is like based off of a cricket. What are they called? The throwers in cricket. The guys who do the bowlers, that's what they call them. They do the underhand like cricket ball throw at like 100 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
But doing that with the party's rogue.
Just the true fastball special.
Yeah, definitely. Very good. Well, I think that's the point where we turn it over to our listeners. Travelers, what did you think? Which parts of this document made you excited? Do you think any of these are stronger than we thought they were and we missed out on the use case of it? Do you think any of the ones we liked are actually worse than we estimated them to be? Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what part of this was your favorite element of the document, and what part do you think was the weakest that needs the most refining and fine-tuning? But for us, I think I can finally see the light of day ahead as we finally exited the dungeon. Oh, that was a long one. But I think we've all gotten loot. We defeated the boss at the end. And that means I think it's time for everybody to level up.
Nice. I got this great loot here. It's this like little spear and it glows. It must be really powerful.
No, wait. Me too. I got one of those.
Wait,
that's crazy.
You guys got loot in your box? Oh, I just have chicken nuggets.
Oh,
That's
wait.
a great
I'll
loot.
trade you.
Yep.
I'll trade you this floating snow globe for those chicken nuggets.
Guys, I don't think I got a toy in my box.
Oh.
Oh no.
Well, we're gonna go get Onog another Happy Meal. Until next time, travelers, keep on adventuring.
And nobody even died.
Where's Mercy?
We never speak of Mercy again.